Test one. Yeah. Christ Nation. Come on. We want to welcome you to the Formation Forum. Yep. In here, we form minds. I'm from the era of Biggie, from that era of Tupac, era where Mary and Barry set up in crack spots, where drug lords kept blocks locked in, and fake drug wars kept blacks locked in. The law of the city lights captured me then. Freedom I sought in Christ grafted me in. Now, new man, new rules, new life to face. No cross, no crown, no time to waste. Lights, cameras in action now, cause forming minds is my passion now. Teaching from life's lessons now. I'll pour out my soul as I glance at his crown. The thorns of the earth see them pierced in his brow. The blood see it drip, see my name take a vow. It cost him his life, it cost him his child. I gave him my life, redeemed, reconciled, and now we talk Christ, culture, and politics. The Formation Forum, 3,600 ticks. Connect to the desk, get your clarion call. A commune of the minds, we call it the table talk. You are now tuned in to the Formation Forum. You connected now. Don't go nowhere. We about to have some real talk. You heard me? Christ Nation, Formation Forum. You are now tuned in to what's real. Let's go.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us here in the Formation Forum. Here in the Formation Forum, we take leadership principles and personal development principles, and we marry them together with the very many aspects of life through the lens of truth so that we foster a biblical worldview. I don't care if you're leading a Fortune 500 company. I don't care if you're leading a very small church. These same principles work. Even watch this in your house as an individual. These leadership and personal development principles, they are key for successful living. Listen, I'm going to jump right back into trust because I know that these segments go pretty quickly, and I want to make sure that we get to transform, and I want to give enough time to each of these things. So trust, as we stated in the last segment, at the end of the last segment, is bi-directional, leader to the group, group to the leader. The leader's releasing some authority. She's releasing authority. The group members, they are understanding and viewing the leader genuinely, and they believe that the leader generally cares about the group, the people, not just the end goal. And it's very important because that's how trust builds. When you have a leadership environment, when you have an environment or culture that does not think that the leader cares about their people, man, it becomes very, very, very difficult to get to end goals that can be celebrated. You know, it's almost, let's just say it doesn't produce a good product. Doesn't produce a good product. Because of the nature of the trekking stage, it is during this stage, during that trekking stage, that trust is built within the team. Trust is the confidence that the leader is leading from within and not from the outside. What do we mean by that? Trust is when the team, the group, really believes that the leader is a part of the group, not just directing the group. So in other words, the leader, as leaders, we do direct, we do lead, we do have people that count on us to give them insight, give them inspiration, move them into a particular direction. I think it was Tom Landry that said something to the effect that his job as a coach is to make the players do things that they do not want to do so that they can become the player that they always wanted to be. That buy-in, that thing where you got to work, I call it a championship culture. You want to create a culture of champions individually so that you can have a championship collective culture, right? So trust is the confidence that the leader is leading from within and not from the outside, not just simply commanding and telling people what to do. Trust, you'll know folks trust you based on their buy-in, based on their presence, based on their commitments, right? When folks are doing things or have things on their calendar, well, let me take a step back and say, for many people, their calendar is a picture of what they are committed to. So the more buy-in that you have from individuals, from people, from your team, from your group, then the more spots on your calendar or on their calendar you will possess. The more committed that folks are, the more buy-in that they have, the more positions of the calendar. Why? Because in our culture and in our time, we're driven by calendars, and whatever's on the calendar is. What else happens though? When I'm extra committed to you, things on the calendar move. They become subject to what we are doing. And whether it be a company you're trying to build or start, if it's a ministry, a church that you're in or starting, planting, doesn't make a difference. Things don't get off the ground unless you have people committed to the intended outcome. Trust is horizontally shared through the team. Trust is horizontally shared through the team. In other words, when one person starts to trust, each other, you start to get more trust between people. Man, the things that happen are incredible. You speed up the process of getting to your intended goal or your intended future state. When there's a lack of trust in the group, then what happens naturally is that it becomes more chaotic because no one trusts anybody. And if you don't have that trust, if you don't foster a culture of trust, if you don't put people in the right positions, or people are only in positions simply based on tenure, not on competency and skill set, then there's the potential of causing a chaotic team environment. A chaotic team environment. We see this all the time. I really used to see it a lot in corporate America when I was, that's way back in 2000, before 2006, but when I was in corporate America, and you would just see people rise up in the ranks based on, they may have had a couple of great sales months. I was in sales for a little while, for a long time, but they may have gone up because of sales. They had great sales months, and so now we want to make them a sales manager because the thought process was, if they've done what they've done, now they can teach others how to do it, and that's just not true. It's just not true at all. Some people are not gifted or have the emotional intelligence to lead people. Some people have not developed the emotional intelligence to lead people, right? Their EQ is low. So if their EQ is low, they may have great competency, but that doesn't mean that they're in a position where they can transfer that competency to other people, right? So trust is horizontally shared within the team. And when that happens, that team begins to grow. As trust builds, individual ownership builds. And remember we talked about, we want folks to own what they do. We want the vision that may have been started with the leader, cast by the leader, to become a part of the people who are connected to the leader. So now it's not the leader's vision, it's our vision. It's what when people start saying we more, when it's we and not, the leader's name so-and-so, Pastor B wants to do this and Pastor B wants to do that, or Brian's doing these things and this is, that's great. But anything that I put my hand to is not for my glory. And so I appreciate the recognition, but at the same time, I'm trying to pass the ownership. If I'm casting that vision, I want you to begin to buy in and you to begin to have ownership of different aspects of where we, are going. And so as trust builds, individual ownership builds to one's role, and the importance of carrying out the role solely for the achievement of the collective becomes central. Now, listen to what I'm saying. When your trust builds, when someone understands their role, once they have taken ownership, once they've bought all the way in, then their role, they understand, must be completed so that the collective can enjoy the fruits of the labor. So every individual takes on their role in such a way that their role becomes central to what they're to understanding that we are going here, which requires me to do my role. In other words, the me and my mentality is disposed of, and it's replaced with we and our. And that we and our mentality is adopted. So once we've had this trust, let me start from the beginning. Once we've done all of this telling, and this telling is still going on even when we're in trust. But what happens with the telling is that it's not simply the leader that's doing it. Now there's trust between us. Now we've trekked together. We've talked, we're telling, we're talking, we're trekking. Now this trust is building, and all of a sudden, there's this transformation. Transform, this last thing, this transform is a state of being for the group. When you are in this stage of transformation, the stage of being transformed, it's a state of being. That's what makes the gospel so powerful, right? Do not be conformed, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That renewing of your mind and that gospel and that journey to Christ and that journey to know who Christ is, to know Jesus, and that process, you're going through all of these same steps. You're going through all these same stages. You're someone's telling you, and then now you begin to talk because you need to figure out what's going on, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're trekking with other people. You're in community with folks, and then in that community you start to build these bonds and you start trusting folks. Why? So that transformation can take place. It's the same in Christ. It's the same in a church. It's the same in a company or any type of organization. The same thing is true. These are truths. These are leadership and personal development truths. These principles are not just, we're not just drawing them out because we're so smart. They've been written for years. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't, not just don't apply, but sometimes they're not presented in such a way where we understand that they work together. Transform is a state of being. This is the culture of the group. Transform is the culture of the group, as well as the generative activity intentionally produced by the group. Transforming happens when the story of the future state becomes the actual narrative of our current endeavor. I'm going to say that again. Transforming happens when the story of the future state becomes the actual narrative of our current endeavor. Tell, talk, trek, trust, transform. I hope you have enjoyed this episode, this segment, this show, the Formation Forum. I hope it was fruitful for you as a leader, as a group member, team member. I hope it was fruitful for you. I want to make sure that I do invite you again to our Vision Cast, the Christ Nation Vision Cast, happening Monday at 7 p.m. Connect with me on Twitter at Pastor B Green. Connect with Christ Nation at My Christ Nation on Twitter. Connect with me on Instagram. I am_Pastor B. Connect with us. Connect with us on Facebook at The Christ Nation. Connect with us. We're here. We thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. Enjoy your weekend.